One boundary that I noticed was a real struggle for a lot of personal trainers is a social boundary. We've talked about attachment, romantic, and medical boundaries, but the social boundary, the fourth one in my book, is really important. And I think especially for younger trainers, they don't really understand what this means or how it affects them in the long term. And part of this is rooted in the way personal training is sort of developed over the years, and then also just the way people tend to come into this industry. I've seen that a lot of kids that are working out in the gym want to become a personal trainer. They see it as a business opportunity. Maybe they're already fit. Maybe they're just really interested in fitness, and all that's great. But they decide to take this career, and they get certified, hopefully. And certification companies do a great job of teaching us about anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, nutrition, all that. But when it comes to the relationships we have with our clients, there's not a lot of information out there that I've seen passed around, which is why I feel this is so important to make sure that trainers have the opportunity to understand what's happening. But when you're brand new to the fitness industry and you are just starting out, a lot of times we recruit our friends and family to be a part of our clientele. All right, we are in the gym, we are working out, we know a lot of people there, and you're starting to head down the path of becoming a trainer, and you need customers in order to make a living. And the way we often do this, again, is to recruit those people that we already know, people that are in our network. And that's fine, but it's important to differentiate between your business side and your social and personal side. And so I'm going to give you a few examples of where this becomes really tricky. I've seen many situations where a personal trainer is in a setting like this, and they're just starting out. They have their family and friends who are already part of their network on social media. And then over time, they start to bring in clients that they've never met before, new clients, new business. And a lot of times they'll use the same social media platform, their Facebook page, or their own personal Facebook account, to to connect with somebody. And on LinkedIn, for example, my LinkedIn connections started as people I worked with. And that's the way it's remained. It's clients, and it's also people that I've been in an employee position with. And so we naturally tend to bring in people. We start to train them, and we allow them to connect with us on social media. And I've seen this backfire in a number of situations. I've worked with a trainer who years ago canceled a series of sessions on a Friday, explaining to her clients that she was very sick. The problem was that trainer then posted online that she'd gone to a party that Friday night. So the clients on Monday, when they came in to see her, they weren't necessarily upset that she had canceled the Friday session. They were upset with the way she did it. Had she explained to them, like, hey, I was invited to a party, I'm going to go to the party, I can't make it to your session, things probably would have been a lot better for her. But because she had said, hey, I'm sick, I have the flu, I can't train you, and then posted pictures of herself at the party, everybody that she was involved with on social media saw that, and a lot of those people were her clients. So the obvious fix for this, if you haven't figured it out already, is pretty simple. Have a personal Facebook account and then have a Facebook page, which is why we have the business pages in Facebook. And I bring this up because not everybody realizes that it's that simple. You have to keep your personal stuff separate from your business stuff. More importantly, you need to keep your personal opinions personal and your work information non-partisan, you want to stay out of topics like religion, sex, sexual orientation, social issues that are troubling, right? Abortion, wars, politics. You don't want to get into those things because when you do, you start to alienate your audience or part of your audience. So if you get into a situation where you're in favor of the current president and you post that in your personal account, that's fine. Family and friends can see that, and you can argue with them there. But if it starts to affect your business, that becomes a problem. So if you leave it out of there, not an issue. Now, I think a lot of people, especially older people understand that already. Younger people, probably not so much. So I'm bringing it up because it's important. On that note, though, I have been in situations where a client overheard me speaking to another client. And when they did not like the conversation. And it went something like this. I had a client who was getting married to a person of the same gender. Okay? Two guys getting married. And the client said to me, he said, Ron, you've been an important part of my journey. You've helped me lose some weight. I feel a lot stronger. I feel a lot healthier. I'd like to invite you to be at the wedding. Just want you to come as a guest, the wedding. I said, no problem. Great. I appreciate that. The client that was meeting me afterwards happened to be in the area and overheard that conversation and came to me later and said, if you go to that wedding, I will no longer train with you because I'm opposed to same-sex marriages. Now, this left me in a difficult spot because financially, I wanted both clients. I was not going to say, no, I will not attend your wedding because another client told me I cannot. I'm not going to let my clients control me. So I had to tell the client, listen, if you are going to stop training with me, because I may or may not, just depending, the wedding was a way off. It was a long way off. I don't even know if I can attend. Something might happen that weekend. Something might make me busy. Whatever. I don't know. Clients invite me to stuff all the time that doesn't work out anyway. Things can change. But I can't have a client controlling what I do with another in my personal life. And it just set the tone for me that when I'm talking to a client, I need to make sure that it's confidential, that it's private, that if they're going to invite me to something like that, I don't want other people to overhear it if possible. It's kind of an exception to the rule, but most people are very tolerant of that, I think, at least most of the clients I have. And so occasionally you're going to run into somebody that doesn't believe a certain way, and they're going to try to force you into a situation. I recommend, if you are a trainer, that you understand those situations and you understand how it's going to affect your business, and you make decisions early on as to what you're going to do. Now, for me, I had enough business that I had no problem losing that guy and saying, look, I'm going to attend whatever wedding I want to. I'm going to do whatever I want in my personal time. When I'm with you, I train you, and that's it. But it does highlight the issue that, when you are in a social setting, that you maintain neutrality whenever possible. I did have a situation a few years ago. I owned my own studio, and I had a trainer that was speaking with a client about abortion. And this comes down to emotional intelligence and self-awareness. The client was uncomfortable with the conversation and originally started speaking about it in somewhat of a kind of a quiet, almost confidential manner. The trainer did not understand this, was not very self-aware, and was very open about talking about situations in her life with the client. This led to the client being upset and crying on the floor. Now, in the process of this, I had walked over and tried to interrupt the session. I changed the direction of the conversation, or so I thought. I directed the trainer to speak about other things, and unfortunately, the trainer didn't get it. And when I realized that the trainer had continued the conversation, had gone right back to speaking about abortion, and it's not even important as to what was going on in the setting. What was important was the trainer did not see that the client was upset over the situation. Of course, the client left. We never saw the client again. And the trainer had to be reprimanded. It was a conversation that I didn't want to have, but one in which I had to say, did you not understand that I was trying to deflect the conversation to something different, number one? I gently explained to you that we couldn't talk about abortion on the floor in the moment. You didn't even follow those instructions. And three, you continued to the point where the client was crying and you didn't even seem to think that was a problem. Now, in those settings, sometimes people just make mistakes. This trainer clearly was just not mature enough to understand what was supposed to happen. And that's a lesson for me too, to make sure that, we have these conversations beforehand. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought the client or the trainer would have known and better, but obviously did not. So in situations where you are maybe not self-aware, it's very important for you to do an assessment. And for those types of assessments, for that kind of information, you're going to need to talk to people that are going to be open and honest with you and say to you, hey, this is what you do. You tend to ignore other people's feelings when you're talking about something. You tend to, gloss over something and just start talking about something that's important to you, and you don't notice that it's hurting other people, that it's affecting other people. And this will hopefully open you up to being more self-aware and recognizing that the conversations you have, the things you talk about, do have an impact on other people. They do make a difference. And so it's very important that you maintain a level of professionalism and try not to discuss things that are, hot button topics for people. So I think in the fitness industry, we do have a lot of young trainers that are just coming in. They probably haven't been in a professional environment, or at least not in one where conversations really make an impact. Working in some of the environments you're in when you're younger, you're going to be in, fast food restaurants or retail, where conversations are much more, they happen with a lot more freedom and a lot more grace because people are younger. They're not really aware as much as they will be when they're a little bit older, probably just because they haven't had the experience or the wisdom that comes with being in those environments. Fortunately for me, when I was growing up, I happened to work in a hospital when I was younger. And so I had to see, I was exposed to confidentiality. I was exposed to people getting bad news. I was exposed to people suddenly breaking down into tears because they found something out that was really bad about their health. And seeing that, being exposed to that, set me up to understand that when you are talking with somebody, if you see their face change, if you see that they have become uncomfortable all of a sudden, chances are good you've stepped into a situation or a conversation that you shouldn't, or you should at least be aware that you want to proceed carefully and take into consideration the other person's feelings. People just don't tend to do that anymore. I don't know if that's more of a social and cultural type thing or what it could be, but it's important to understand that when you're dealing with a client, they are vulnerable to you. They're telling you, I'm uncomfortable with the way I look. I'm uncomfortable with the way I feel. I feel uncomfortable with the shape of my body, and I'm trying to change it. And as a professional, it's important that you take into consideration their feelings when you're discussing things with them so that you can cautiously assist them without offending them. Because again, this comes down to revenue. You want to make sure that you are ethically caring for your client, that you are taking good care of them so that they return to you for advice, for help, for continued business. As a personal trainer, there is money to be made. You are in a business where you're trying to earn income. And so in those situations, very valuable to have a level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness so that when you're speaking with people in a social setting, you can manage that professionalism, you can manage the relationship, and you can keep the person coming back for more. Now, all of this is in my book, When Personal Training Gets Personal. I talk about that throughout this series here on my videos, and hopefully you found this information helpful. If you're a personal trainer and you have questions or comments, by all means, go ahead and leave them here in the channel. Subscribe to this channel if you like the information. Share it with other trainers that can use this, because trust me, if you work with a trainer that needs this information, share it with them, please, because I want to improve the quality of the industry. I want to lift all personal trainers up. That's why the motto at FitPro System is elevate yourself, empower others. That's all I got for this one. I'll see you in the next.